God believe in truth.
We made a brand new culture.
MAGA season.
It said, "I changed my life tonight if Donald Trump reduced my sentence." He not only reduced his sentence, he pardoned you.
All that good shit.
That's hard. That's hard. It's never been done before.
See Gemini getting here. Gemini like me, his birthday 3 days after my shit.
Right.
And I boy like he be vibing out here too.
Right. So Trump right now, even though he probably don't need it, if he needed $1 million, would you give him $1 million?
Of course, nigga. I didn't even know.
They call us MAGA rappers.
My fans and my people are just Trump crazy.
I am MAGA. Like, you can't get more MAGA than me. Where them patriots at? Where them patriots at?
Trump's a boss. I'm a boss. Trump's got the hate. I got the hate. Trump had the girls. I got the girls. Trump's got the money. I'm getting the money. Yeah, Mar-a-Lago, you feel me? It goes back.
Oh my God.
It's like MAGA has grown bigger than Trump. And they say us, this is a grift. But how can I grift something I created?
What are you playing tonight?
Division. I'm doing 2 genders.
Welcome to the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known. And yet we're going to talk about that this morning as a growing list of hip-hop artists pledging their allegiance to Trump. And you saw there Kodak Black said if he needed $1 million, he would give him $1 million. And the other dude said he was he's all about MAGA. He said he's the king of MAGA or something like that. He don't even know what MAGA means. I guarantee you that. But this morning, President Biden has nominated a couple more Black female judges to the federal bench. We'll talk about that. And a jury in Missouri has found that the National Association of Realtors and several residential brokerage, they are liable for conspiring to artificially inflate commissions for home sales, resulting in a staggering $1.8 billion in damages. The potential payout may escalate to $5 billion. We'll discuss that this morning as well. And the war in Israel, a mediated deal has been struck to allow for the evacuation of up to 500 foreign and dual nationals per day. The deal covers several days of transfers, including of critically injured civilians. The deal by the U.S., Hamas, Israel, and Egypt was mediated by Qatar. Egypt will control who gets to cross and when, using an agreed-upon list of foreign nationals. And a nonprofit group of cold case crime investigators, check this out. Power 96 should appreciate this. They claim to have located Jimmy Hoffa. Yeah, we're going to discuss that all this morning. But first, President Biden this week nominated Judge Julie S. Sneed and Judge Jacquelyn D. Austin to the U.S. District Courts for the Middle District of Florida and the District of South Carolina. The White House said that the nominations continue to show Biden and Harris's ongoing, Vice President Kamala Harris's ongoing commitment to diversify the federal bench and ensure that the nation's courts reflect the multifaceted nature of the United States. With 32 Black women appointed by Biden already confirmed by the Senate for lifetime judgeships, the Biden-Harris administration continues to set records when it comes to professional and demographic diversity, according to Stephen Benjamin, the director of the White House Office of Public Engagement, and who's also a senior advisor to the president. Put Black women on the bench. Well, folks, he is definitely doing that. But Kodak Black is not going to give him $1 million, regardless of how much he might need it. You can rest assured of that. And I see the speculation is heated up in the comments about Jimmy Hoffa being buried under what used to be Giant Stadium and now MetLife. Stadium. 32 Black women appointed by Biden have been confirmed by the Senate to lifetime judgeships. It's a far cry from what and it's the most anybody's done. The White House said in a statement that these choices also continue to fulfill the president's promise to ensure that the nation's courts reflect the diversity that is one of our greatest assets as a country, both in terms of personal and professional backgrounds. Judge Sneed and Judge Austin both have extensive history on the bench. So it just wasn't one of those picks where I'm picking them because I said I was going to put Black women there. These are extremely intelligent and experienced judges that he's putting on the federal bench. And of course, among the most celebrated of Biden's nominees that made it through confirmation, Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, who made history last year as the first Black woman to serve on the U.S. Supreme Court. Also this morning, a jury in Missouri has found the National Association of Realtors and several residential brokerages liable for conspiring to artificially inflate commissions for home sales, resulting in a staggering $1.8 billion in damages. The potential payout could escalate to about $5 billion when you factor in that in a trial like that, the damages are generally tripled. Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway owned Home Services of America, its two subsidiaries. I got a COVID and a flu shot yesterday and feeling the effects. And Keller Williams Realty were among the other real estate groups found guilty of participating in the conspiracy. At the heart of the case were home sellers' objections to an association rule mandating them to offer a non-negotiable commission to buyers agents before listing their home online, typically 5 to 6%. If you've sold a home before, if you've sold your home before, you know that they're getting 6% or 5%. And here, courts are saying, yeah, you're entitled to it if the seller agrees willingly. But many sellers have said that they have had difficulty selling their houses. In fact, not only have they had difficulty selling their houses without an agent, but agents and realty companies have tried to block sales when a individual is not using a licensed real estate agent. Power 96 says, don't pass out or you're going to end up on the shade room. No, I'm not doing that, Power 96. But I got a shot in each arm. The COVID vaccine in the left arm and the flu shot in the right arm. Boy, and it just takes you out. But I'm one of those who believe that the vaccine is a protection. So, and then we got trips coming up and things like that. So got to protect myself because I can't trust the general public to protect each other. Folks coughing on you and stuff. Power 96. You go on the airplane and you all snuggled up there together. No, we can't be doing all that. Can't be doing all that. I'm gonna use some of Power 96's veteran benefits to fly in the cockpit or something. That's what I'm gonna do. Power 96. Use your name. But the lawsuit, the real estate lawsuit, contends that the rule requiring home sellers to pay commissions to buyers agents infringes upon the Sherman Antitrust Act. The case dates to 2019 when a group of home sellers initiated the action against the National Association of Realtors and various brokerages. It's going to be an interesting battle because they're appealing, of course. They did reach a settlement in one other lawsuit similar to this, where the National Real Estate Association settled for $140 million. And that was before the commencement of this latest trial. So they are admitting some sort of by settling by that much, you would think they're admitting some sort of wrongdoing. Angela Connolly says I don't take both shots at the same time. That way I will know which is counteracting with my body. Well, yeah, I can see the reasoning on that, but like, just go ahead and get it over. I hate needles, so I'm like, get it over with. And Power 96 says he uses his Sanford and Son truck to go across country. Use my name and you might get locked up. It's always a risk, I'm sure. So this real estate, if you're going to sell your home, this is something that you might want to, or even buying a home, you might want to look at. Now, turning our attention to the war, evacuations of people trapped in the Gaza Strip began through the Rafah border crossing for the first time since Israel imposed a siege on the Palestinian enclave after the Hamas attack on October 7th. Some injured civilians crossed into Egypt with hundreds of foreign passport holders, including some Americans, also ready to leave. The crossing was opened after Egypt, Hamas, and Israel agreed that up to 500 people may cross each day. They reached this deal while in Qatar, and a U.S. Diplomat was there too and was briefed on the situation. An initial group of U.S. citizens were among those that departed Gaza through the Rafah crossing yesterday, and they are now in Egypt, according to the State Department. A new communications outage hit Gaza, of course, with internet and phone services reported to be down, while hospitals and the densely populated enclave were also running out of, they've run out of fuel. An Israeli airstrike on a Gaza refugee camp also drew condemnation yesterday and fueled new anger about the civilian cost of its expanding military operation. Netanyahu said he's not listening to anybody when it comes to saying ceasefire. He says it's time for war. Israel said a massive strike on the refugee camp killed a senior Hamas commander who was one of the architects of the October 7th attack. Dozens of other people were killed and hundreds were wounded in the strike, according to a local hospital. More than 1 million people have been displaced in Gaza, where Palestinian health officials say more than 8,700 people have been killed. In Israel, 1,400 people were killed in the Hamas attack, and 240 continue to be held hostage. Also, at a virtual forum hosted by the Justice Department Civil Rights Division yesterday afternoon, Attorney General Merrick Garland addressed the increase in threats against Jewish, Muslim, and Arab communities across the country. In reference to the arrest at Cornell University, he says, we also know that the time to build relationships and trust between law enforcement and community partners is before an incident or crisis occurs. Although our work to combat hate crimes is always important, it can quickly become more urgent at any time. It is those moments when we rely on our partnerships the most. That is exactly what we have seen over the past several weeks, the Attorney General said. In his address, he also reassured members of targeted communities that the DOJ is working to combat hate crimes as they occur. He says no person and no community in this country should have to live in fear of hate-fueled violence. You are not alone. And then members of Congress, conservative activists, and wealthy tech investors are renewing calls to ban TikTok in the U.S., arguing that the most popular content related to the Israel-Hamas war on the app has a pro-Palestinian slant that is undercutting support for Israel among young Americans. So they want to mute TikTok because they feel too many people on TikTok support Palestine. And Power 96 says the Arabs are mad and they will not vote for Biden. I guess they forgot about Trump's Muslim ban. And Trump, it's funny you say that, and that's why I read it, Power 96, because Trump once again reiterated that first day in office, the Muslim ban goes back into effect, among other things. Of course, TikTok has been the target of criticism for years because of its Chinese ownership and concerns about government control over the app. And now critics allege that it is using its influence to push content that is, as we said, pro-Palestinian and contrary to the U.S. policy or foreign policy issues. Oh boy, I tell you, it's so much going on. And then you factor in the House Republican bill to provide aid to Israel. They're saying that the new speaker has pushed this bill that will add about $27 billion to the U.S. budget deficit. Now, these are folks who are saying absolutely no more to the budget, but this MAGA Republican leader wants to add $27 billion to the debt. Now, he claims that the Congressional Budget Office is wrong, that it will actually reduce the debt. How he didn't explain. Mike Johnson, that is the speaker. But he also, then here's the big bum inside the bill. He wants to pair $14.3 billion in aid to Israel with $14.3 billion in cuts to IRS funding that was enacted under the Inflation Reduction Act. But the CBO found that the IRS cuts coupled with the Israel aid, it's going to be $27 billion in debt. But that's the thing with the so-called conservative Republicans, or really, this is the real right wing, far right wing camp in the Republican Party that wants to get rid of IRS enforcement. They are very upfront about that. They don't want the IRS snooping around wealthy folks. There was a report that said that folks who make over $1 million often go at least a couple of years without even filing their taxes. And Mr. Durrett says, is the aid given out to countries, is that a loan or non-reimbursable loan? It is not a loan. It's just that. It's aid. And that is, look, there's nothing new about that. This is something that this country and most countries, well, certainly America, we can speak for America, right? America will fund the war before they fund a homeless camp. And that's just the bottom line. And also, speaking of the Israel-Hamas conflict, Amy Schumer posted a video featuring clips of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and that when he was speaking in support of Israel and denouncing anti-Semitism. But Bernice King, Dr. King's daughter, was compelled to clarify what her father's stance would be on the war between Israel and Hamas. Bernice King said, "Certainly my father was against anti-Semitism, as am I. He also believed militarism, along with racism and poverty, to be among the interconnected triple evils. I am certain he would call for Israel's bombing of Palestinians to cease, for hostages to be released, and for us to work for true peace, which includes justice." And she continued by saying, he said, "Justice at its best is love, correcting everything that stands against love. We have much to correct." Schumer, she in her post, you can hear Dr. King's voice saying that Israel must exist and has a right to exist and is one of the great outposts of democracy in the world. In another clip, he denounces anti-Semitism as wrong and says it is unjust and it is evil. And Bernice King says that, well, in her response, she shared a different clip of her father talking about moral power and withdrawing from the Vietnam War. She encouraged Amy Schumer to read her father's book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community. She says, "I mourn with all those who are mourning. I know that we can't afford to diminish and dehumanize each other if we are truly committed to ridding humanity of the triple evils and to freedom from oppression for all. Interesting. Very interesting. And yeah, David Youngblood says Bernice gave the rest of the story. And Mike V says they want to spend more money on Israel than they would on HBCU security from right-wing extremists in this country, who the FBI said is the #1 threat. Shaking my head. And Power 96 says, I am so sick of mayonnaise people cherry picking Dr. King's quotes and speeches. Amy, stick to making lame jokes. Yeah, who finds her funny anyway? I mean, I know she has fans somewhere. Don't get me started again, Power. You know, I did my Taylor Swift rant for the week, and now you're gonna get me doing a Amy Schumer rant. Because I just tell certain people, you just when they first open their mouth, you just what's the big deal about them? How do you pay money to see them do comedy? I remember like Eddie Murphy, especially in his prime, Richard Pryor too. They would simply just step on the stage and you start laughing before they said the first word, because you knew it was going to be hilarious. Dave Chappelle is that way too, like him or not. And Timothy Williams said, she says, I never liked that heavy-faced woman. Wow. I never heard an expression like the heavy face. So folks, so here's the deal. So I've seen the comments about Jimmy Hoffa. And yes, forever we've all concluded that he was buried under MetLife Stadium, Giant Stadium, when it was Giant Stadium, right? Well, check this out. He's a long way from New Jersey, folks, according to this new investigation. The body of Hoffa may have been found buried next to the old Milwaukee County baseball stadium by a search dog called Moxie. Cold case investigators are making this claim today. The nonprofit Case Breakers group says its years-long investigation led them to the former site of Milwaukee County Stadium in Wisconsin. Hoffa, of course, the legendary union leader, disappeared on July 30th, 1975, while reportedly on his way to a meeting with Detroit Mafia members. His body, of course, never found, and he was declared legally dead in 1982. The case breaker said in a statement that their search was aided by a dying police sergeant's scribbled instructions on an ace of spades playing card. The group said it believes Hoffa's remains now rest beside what is now a Little League field built next to the current stadium there in Milwaukee, which is now called American Family Field. And a quote from this organization, they said, independent sources in 3 states convinced the volunteer investigators that CSI Forensics will reveal Hoffa's remains at a Little League field in the shadow of Milwaukee's Major League Baseball stadium. They claimed that Hoffa's body was moved from another location and secretly buried in 1995 under this old stadium's third base. So is that other location, they didn't say, was it Giant Stadium? The Little League field was built in 2002 in the middle of the car park that replaced the old stadium on the site. The case breakers say that they used radar, which was blocked by an unexpected clay layer that they said indicates a dig at the site had been hurriedly excavated and backfilled. The group then brought in a top cadaver dog named Moxie to the site with her retired police officer handler, Karen Corcoran, with the dog given a positive sign, they said, several times. And in a quote, the founder, Thomas Colbert, says this gal has, I believe the figure is over 200 cases of finding either the dead or the missing. So the dog has found over 200 people who have been missing or dead. He says she's phenomenal, and she brought in the officer is phenomenal, and brought in the phenomenal dog. I'll get it right eventually. And where does the dog go? Right to the ground penetration radar spot 3 years earlier, and that's where we got excited. The group say that Moxie pointed, wagged, barked, and nosed her way into 4 hits at the stadium's old third base location. Now, the next step that they said is to work with local law enforcement and the FBI to dig up the site. Now, that'll be interesting. See if they're going to dig this site up. A string of searches and digs have taken place in an attempt to locate Hoffa's remains, including one under a bridge in New Jersey in 2022. The case, of course, got fresh attention when Hoffa's life and apparent murder featured in Martin Scorsese's 2019 movie, The Irishman, in which the mob-linked union leader was played by Al Pacino. The independent agencies reached out to the FBI, and the FBI has called it an ongoing investigation. Austin is around. He says, I have the dog. Find my millions, please. Where'd you bury him, Austin? Where'd you bury the millions? We need to know. And they have not mentioned, Power 96, whether or not there's a reward. You would think so, though, right? There would be a reward. Well, they probably not, because they've given up. Come on. And now you got independent groups going and searching. But I tell you what, some story that would be if they actually, first of all, it'd be amazing if they even got permission to dig that up. But it would be such a story if they could conclude definitively that that is Jimmy Hoffa. Wow. Interesting. Well, folks, and what could be deemed our top story today? 2 monumental developments happened within the U.S. in August this year. Hip hop turned 50, and Donald Trump was indicted for the 4th time. Now, it might seem like these events have nothing to do with each other, but we can't reflect on hip hop's cultural significance without acknowledging how the genre has praised the presumptive wealth and persona of the former president. It is also a place where anti-progressive politics have thrived. Although thought-provoking storytelling has always been a part of hip hop, the culture also embraced capitalism in its early years. The genre gained widespread popularity in the same decade that Donald Trump became a celebrity because of his wealth. In American culture, he was the gold standard of business. So when some rap artists became commercially successful, they wanted to align themselves with that piece of the American dream. Trump became a symbolic and even aspirational figure among many within hip hop. While he wasn't a rags to riches story, his wealth and other things about him were enviable for many, especially for those who lived and rapped about living on the margins. Between the 1990s and 2000, it was common for rap songs to mention or reference Trump in affirming ways. But a 1989 Ice-T record called My Word is Bond was among the earliest examples. On the track, rapper Donald D, not Donald Trump, absurdly brags about hanging out with Trump after hanging out at the White House. Now, this is long before he was in office. Notably, Ice-T became a vocal critic of Trump during his presidency. The lyrics were a foreshadow, and not just because of the mention of the White House. It also showed how Trump could get a pass despite promoting racist policies. Just a few months before the song was released, Trump infamously placed ads in several newspapers, full-page ads calling for reinstating the death penalty so that the Central Park Five, now the exonerated Five, could be executed. He wanted them executed. 25 years later, when Trump became a presidential candidate, Kanye West was among his most well-known supporters and proudly wore the red MAGA hat during a bizarre White House meeting. And although Trump made a mockery of the presidency and used inflammatory rhetoric about the very communities in which hip hop arose, there are still some rappers who publicly showed him support during his 2020 re-election bid. Some rappers now had access to a lifestyle that had been out of reach no matter how much money they made. Trump further endeared himself to parts of the hip hop community while he was in the Oval Office, because he pardoned Kodak Black, who Kodak Black calls him Uncle Trump, and Lil Wayne. So among others who currently support or at least have spoken in favor of Trump in his 2024 campaign, Sexy Red, we know, 6ix9ine, Fivio Foreign, Ice Cube, Chief Keef, Bandman Kevo, Benny the Butcher, Lil Pump, and Waka Flocka fame.
Because at first, I don't think people was fucking with him like they thought he was racist, saying little shit and, you know, against women. But once he started getting black people out of jail and giving people their free money, oh, baby, we love Trump. We need him back in office.
Yeah, I'm sure Jamil Hill took her to task there. Yeah, Power 96 says only the poorly educated rappers support Trump. Ask those rappers when was the last time they voted in any election. 99% of them are not registered voters. And Mike V says black men seeking out their masculinity in white men. Nothing new to see here. Well, and you got a couple of women mixed in there too, Mike V. We saw the Sexy Red thing. She was excited about the what is it? What was the stimulus? 1,200 or whatever it was. Excited about that. Look, that, and she's the person that be carrying around these stacks of bills wherever she goes. She's at a football game. They show her at a football game carrying these stacks of bills, meeting football players who say, "I'm sure, young lady, my millions are in the bank or like Power 96 under the mattress." But the beat goes on because you have a number of these the one thing that Trump does have support from, or one group he does have support from, is a certain aspect of the hip hop world. And that has, as we pointed out, what's interesting about that was that was even during the time when he was calling for the death penalty for the Central Park Five. And then even after they were exonerated, he still stood by the fact that they should have been executed. Rappers love Donald Trump. And they can't explain why. Now, Kodak Black got a get out of jail free card from Trump. He was pardoned. But to go so far as to say Uncle Trump, that's interesting. That is really interesting. And Timothy Williams says, "My people die from a lack of knowledge." Yeah, it's so interesting. It's so interesting. Of course, 6ix9ine didn't get a pardon from Trump, but he's front and center. And wouldn't Kodak Black and Sexy Red make a good couple? It's because they kind of look alike. Isn't she pregnant, by the way? I think I saw a picture of her pregnant. Well, whatever. Last word, Power 96. He, along with Wayne, paid $2 million for that pardon. 6ix9ine is just a snitch, he says. Well, what have you is that we just found it interesting enough. David Youngblood says, "I could have freed a lot more." yeah, it was just interesting enough that we still keep, it seems like on a weekly basis, another rapper comes out and talks about the greatness of Donald Trump. It's going to be interesting as to see who else comes out and weighs in. But that's it for this morning, folks. I'm going to recover from my vaccine shot and my flu shot. Somehow, some way, I will get through this day. I shall overcome. Thanks for joining. Let it be known. We'll see you tomorrow.